Hi, everyone. This is Phil Roos, CEO of GrowthWorks, and today I'm with my colleague Elizabeth Lawrence. She's Director of Consulting Services with our firm, and she's going to share out some of the recent findings that she was involved with in our Consumer Conversations series. Elizabeth has recently been talking to empty nesters. Most of them fall into the sort of younger baby boomer age group. She's been talking to them about their feelings, the impact that the coronavirus and everything else going on in the world has been having on their lives and where this all seems to be heading. Welcome, Elizabeth. I really appreciate you being part of this.
Oh, thanks for having me here. It was a great group to talk to.
Can you share some of their kind of headline fears or worries among this cohort? And maybe this has evolved over time as well, from when it started back in March to as things have progressed. What's on their minds?
Yeah, so just for a little context, most of the people I talked to were in their late 50s, almost 60, with 2 or 3 children between the ages of 18 and 28. They've launched them all into, jobs or college. But at the beginning of this, I think like other, younger, cohorts and other people, there was a lot of anxiety and a lot of uncertainty. And even though their kids are out of the house, the kids were their number one concern. First and foremost, they're still worried about their kids. They're feeling a little lost without them. The children tended to be spread out across the country, farther away from where the parents were living. Several of the kids were in what were considered hot spots, New York City, Seattle, and they were a little worried about that for them. And then also just the fact that they could lose their jobs. That they would be, they're young, they're starting their career, they don't have a lot of cushion in terms of nest eggs saved up, and if they lose their jobs, there was quite a bit of anxiety about that. And also about the kids' mental health and making sure that they were still taking care of themselves and not letting their own anxieties, get the better of them. In addition to their kids, though, they're also worried about their parents. They're sandwiched in between their kids and the older generation, and a lot of them have parents in care facilities, memory care facilities where they weren't able to get with them and explain kind of what's going on. So there was concern about that. And I think that the economy, like everybody else, they were worried about the overall economy, and they're worried about their own security. They were at a place, or they thought they'd be at a place where they could, the kids are out of the house and some of those resources could be dedicated to their futures that they're embarking upon. And they're a little bit worried about what that means for them in terms of when they can retire, or do they have to help their kids out if their kids lose a job. So I think not unlike other generations, these are all things that were kind of on their mind.
Yeah, well, and we're now at almost 4.5 months into this.
Right.
Where are they at right now? What has changed over that period of time, particularly in the last couple of months?
Right, and I talked to them over the course of this a few different times, and and they're still worried about their kids. So as time goes by, now that things have opened up, are they still going to be safe? Are they going to be too tempted to travel? Are they going to want to go out and do things? Are they taking precautions like they were earlier in this? And are they, if they're in college, are they going to be in a situation where they are putting themselves at greater risk? They continue to be worried about their parents and their community. But there's kind of this transition to, I don't know if it's grief and anger or a combination of the two. They're seeing all the conflicts that are out there. The death of George Floyd increased tensions, the politicizing, whether it's mask wearing or the divisions that are happening. All that's causing a great deal of anxiety for them. And it all boils back down to kind of what I said earlier, is this isn't really where they thought they'd be. So they're feeling kind of this anger and this grief that this is happening. Their first concern is the people around them and their loved ones, but they can't help but have those feelings that their own lives have been disrupted, and they're feeling kind of disjointed, and actually I think some grief about that. They were really ready to move forward. They were really ready to be these empty nesters and have this time. And it's just being on hold has really impacted them.
Yeah, and I've heard you talk about this as sort of a sense of losing control. Is that at the core of this?
I think that, they were the matriarchs and patriarchs kind of their families at this point, kind of running the show, and they're not kind of in control of any of that anymore. And even looking at things that have helped them along the way, it's things that make them feel like they have more control, whether it's curbside pickup, of items, or, things that I can, keep myself safe and kind of be in charge. And yeah, it's definitely this feeling of not being where we thought we'd be and not being able to do anything about it.
Yeah, and I that's where I was going to go next. Is just kind of curious, what kinds of things did you hear them talking about in terms of products or services or coping mechanisms to try to hold on to some sense of control? You mentioned curbside pickup,
Yeah.
but are there other things that they shared?
Well, it's really interesting because they had really not used or embraced grocery delivery service. And I think the word Instacart came up about 100 times. I mean, they have embraced Instacart and other whatever's in their local regions, delivery services. I heard things like, I've been grocery shopping for 35 years and I'm not going back. I mean, regardless of the pandemic, they are going to continue to do this, even if it's for larger, staples and purchases like that. And then, if they have to go out, they just go out for a few things. But yeah, they thought that was kind of like the greatest thing ever. And they had heard of it vaguely, but they've really embraced it. They've other things that have helped them stay connected, just like younger cohorts, Zoom and FaceTiming and the streaming services. They had used Netflix and they knew about Netflix, but any streaming service, they're totally into being online. It doesn't make them afraid anymore, right? So, and I think that the preconceived notion that somebody who, as they get older, doesn't want to do that, I mean, I think that's something that should be considered.
Well, last question, what are the implications of all this? So we do work with a lot of companies who might have members of this cohort group, might be among the people they're trying to serve. Are any guidance or threads that you've gotten from some of these discussions that would be helpful for them to have in mind?
Yeah, I mean, I think we touched on the technology and this idea that, just because people are getting a little bit older, they can still be your target audience. I think if you can bring access to them, convenience to them, I think they're going to embrace it. I mean, you have to maybe think about the platform or the interface or the user experience from the point of view of a little bit of a newbie. But if you can make them feel included in that technology, I think that you have an audience who is, ripe for that. And then we also talked a little bit about control. So if they told one story that was interesting about maybe really wanting to maybe try eating at a restaurant versus just getting takeout, but a little bit nervous about it. And it was the ability to go and pick the table they wanted outside. I want that corner table. I want no one to approach it except the wait person, having control over their situation at that restaurant gave them some of that confidence to be able to go and enjoy that experience. So those are two of the really big ones, but you can't forget with them about connections and anything that can make them feel more connected to the world around them and particularly to their families. I think that is something that this group in particular, I mean, everybody needs it, but this group is just feeling kind of lonely and discombobulated and, especially separated from their children. So anything you can do to make the experiences that they have online or the connections that they make seem more real and deeper, that would be something that they would, I think, completely embrace.
That's great. Well, this sounds like a really rich set of discussions, and I really appreciate you sharing it with me and anybody else who's watching. So thanks a lot. I hope you'll keep in touch with some of these folks and report back as you sense new things that are happening.
Yeah, definitely. They're an interesting group, and I will continue to reach out to them as things progress.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Elizabeth.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.